What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Cosmic Wonder, where we talk all things Marvel and MCU. I'm your host, Warren Thompson, and there are a ton of new projects coming to the MCU, both movies and Disney Plus shows. Of course, we have everything that Disney has already announced, but we also have movies and shows coming that they haven't officially announced yet, but have been announced by some major trade companies like Deadline and Variety. And I've been getting a ton of requests from you all on Twitter, on Instagram, in the comments of YouTube to do an updated video on the future of Marvel Studios. And what's interesting is I've actually been hearing some concern for the future of the MCU based on some projects that have already come out and some future projects coming out. And people seem primarily concerned with the lack of connectivity that the MCU has right now. But I think this video could put you back at ease as we talk about all of the really important projects coming up in the MCU and how they're all actually going to connect together. So let's dive into it, and of course, if you're new, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on any of the latest Marvel videos. So to start off, I'm just going to say that we're not really going to be talking about Sony's Marvelverse in this video. They do have a lot coming on their end, but unless it's a Spider-Man movie starring Tom Holland, none of it's really going to cross over. But quick side note, it does sound like Sony is planning on starting up their new Spider-Man film starring Tom Holland, Zendaya, and Jacob Batalon pretty soon. So that's really exciting, and they do have other things like Madam Web, Venom 3, El Muerto, a Spider-Woman movie, and more coming up, but of course none of that connects to the MCU. As far as the connectivity of the MCU goes right now, there's one major thing that you need to understand because it's very different than the past. In previous years, Marvel Studios would release about 2 to 3 movies a year, and that was it. That was all we would get. That's what the Infinity Saga was, a few movies a year, all kind of having Easter eggs to the other movies, or references at least, and then every few years the Avengers would get together, and then at the end we had Avengers Endgame where pretty much the whole universe got together. But now you have to understand that we have Disney Plus, but we have Disney Plus on top of now 4 movies a year from Marvel Studios. And Disney Plus seems to be releasing 4 to 5 new series a year, so this is a lot of new content. And all of this content is not going to connect right away. And that's kind of the good thing about Disney Plus is that there's so much content out there, they can actually focus on individual stories. But rest assured, everything does connect because Marvel Studios president Kevin Feige did say, with the exception of like Marvel Zombies and Marvel's What If, you will have to watch these Disney Plus shows to kind of know what is happening in the MCU. WandaVision was a perfect example of that. If you didn't watch WandaVision, well, then Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness was not nearly as good for you than it was for everybody who watched it. But then you have shows like Moon Knight, which seemingly don't really mention anything about the MCU. However, it still did connect. They even mentioned Madripoor in the show. And while that was only a little bit of a connection, it still did connect. But I wouldn't expect the big connections and big team-ups to come from Disney Plus because that's what the movies are for. Disney Plus is going to focus on individual stories, and they're kind of just going to keep that focus. WandaVision focused on WandaVision. Loki focused on Loki and all of the Loki variants. Moon Knight was about Moon Knight and Mark Spector and Stephen Grant, and then eventually Jake Lockley. But you get where I'm going with this. The movies, however, are where things are going to go down. But on top of that, they are going to have specific Disney Plus shows that address a lot of things happening in the MCU. Secret Invasion is a perfect example, and we'll talk about that in a bit, but one thing I need you to keep in mind is that this is a new saga and we are now in the building phase once more. When the MCU originally started, it had to build. They built up to the Avengers. And while yes, there was some connectivity there, it's not like Thor himself was name-dropping Captain America and Iron Man. Point being, they had to build. Then once they had the first Avengers film, that's where everything seemed to be really connected. Well, that's kind of where we are right now. And honestly, things are about to get really exciting. I've seen the first 2 episodes of Ms. Marvel, and I can personally tell you that there are so many Easter eggs in Ms. Marvel and so much connectivity to the MCU. So that feeling of things not being connected is about to go away big time, especially if you look at some key projects coming up. Let's go through them, and we're going to start with, like I said, Ms. Marvel and She-Hulk. Now, in Ms. Marvel, and they showed this in the trailer, so it's not a spoiler, they go to Avengers Con. So, as you can imagine, there is a lot of Easter eggs there and a lot of connectivity. So that's really cool. Then in She-Hulk, we are going to see Wong, which has been confirmed. We've already seen Abomination, and rumor has it right now that we're going to see Daredevil, which is really awesome and very expected because Daredevil is getting his own Disney Plus series, plus he's going to be appearing in the Echo series. And in the Echo series, we're going to be getting, like I mentioned, Daredevil, but also Kingpin. So already with those shows right there, that's a lot of connectivity happening. And that's just Disney Plus shows. Now, of course, Miss Marvel, she's going to go on to join Captain Marvel in The Marvels. And also, The Marvels is going to connect to the Secret Invasion Disney Plus show. And The Marvels and Secret Invasion are going to be very, very big as far as impact on the MCU. But before we get to those, we actually have other projects that are going to be really impactful as well. Doctor Strange 2 was already extremely impactful, but then we have Wakanda Forever coming up. Now, Wakanda Forever is going to introduce Namor, and most likely Atlantis, since that's where he comes from. Now, this could be the start of the introduction of mutants in the MCU, depending on how they depict Namor. But the implications of a war between Namor and Wakanda are pretty big. Plus, not to mention, we need a new Black Panther, not a new T'Challa, but a new Black Panther, and we should figure out who that is in Wakanda Forever. And then, of course, we have possibly the biggest heavy hitter in the MCU coming up, and that is Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, where they will introduce Kang the Conqueror, who, along with some variants of himself, will be one of the main big bads of this next phase. Also, Thor: Love and Thunder is the next movie that is going to come out. And while I do believe that Thor is mostly going to focus on Thor and the entire cast around it, I think introducing the different gods and having statues of the cosmic entities in the trailer mean that this movie is going to have somewhat of a big impact on the MCU. Different gods were introduced in Moon Knight as well, and now we're going to hear Gore the God Butcher's story, and we'll probably run into some other gods that we haven't seen before in the MCU. So Thor: Love and Thunder is going to be really important and impactful as well. And then, of course, we have the Fantastic Four coming up, and that sort of speaks for itself. I think everybody is extremely excited for this movie, and I think it's going to be a game changer for the MCU. I really think it's going to completely shift it. We're about to have an insanely awesome team in the MCU, and the world's smartest man. And the cool thing about the Fantastic Four is they can do battle on Earth, but they can also be a cosmic team as well. Which brings us to the cosmic side of the MCU, which is the Marvels, which I already talked about, but don't forget about Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 and Nova. Nova is confirmed to be coming to the MCU. And it looks like, since this is going to be the last Guardians of the Galaxy film from James Gunn and most of the cast, it looks like the Guardians are going to be set up as an official team of protecting the galaxy where characters can actually be interchanged. So after Guardians 3, we're not going to have the original team, but hopefully some characters will stay, like Star-Lord, and hopefully they get some new ones like Nova and Adam Warlock and other really awesome characters. Then, of course, we have Loki Season 2 coming, and this is where things are going to get really, really interesting. Kevin Feige confirmed that the only way the events of Spider-Man No Way Home could play out and the events of Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness and anything else multiverse that is up and coming, these events were only allowed to happen because of what happened in Loki Season 1. If Loki and Sylvie hadn't have killed He Who Remains, the TVA would have stepped in and stopped all of this from happening. So Loki Season 2 is going to be extremely important, not only for the sacred timeline and the multiverse, but also for another introduction of Kang the Conqueror. And then, of course, we have movies like Captain America 4 coming up, and this could be the start of the new Avengers team, which obviously would have a lot of connections. And last but certainly not least, we have Blade coming up, and this is going to be the start of kind of our monster side of the MCU. Well, really, Moon Knight was the start of it, but Blade is going to take this even further and hopefully be the start of the introduction of the Midnight Suns team. And I am personally really, really excited for that to finally happen in the MCU. So as you can see here, there's a lot of really, really exciting stuff coming up for the MCU. And if you've been worried about the connectivity, I hope this video has helped you at least a little bit. But let me know what you think about the future of the MCU in the comments down below. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe so you don't miss out on any of the future Marvel videos. For live updates, you can follow me on Instagram and Twitter. And as always, thank you all so much for watching. Woof woof.